back with our second game of the evening. I almost just said third and final game of the evening because I'm not usually second either. But we have an adventure which I have entitled Marrow that we're going to hop into after we take a brief moment and introduce our characters. So without further ado, Selcress. How are you, Selcress?
I'm good. How are you, Pete?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a little while since we've spoken here.
Yeah. Well, I wanted a vacation after what happened, you know, in the place with the thing.
I know that there's a lot of stuff going on with places and things, but well, I'm glad you have a moment of peace. How are you doing, Selcress? What's new? What have you been up to lately?
Well, I went back to my keep recently and took Dad on a walk. I think he appreciated it, but with everything kind of topsy-turvy where I live now, it's a little awkward.
Yeah, I suppose both like figuratively and literally topsy-turvy. But I'm glad you got to spend some quality time with your family. That's very important.
Yeah, I still can't find Mom anywhere, but I guess she's out there somewhere.
Hopefully the two of you are reunited sooner rather than later.
Doppel says hi, by the way.
Hello, Doppel. I don't know if he's there in the background and can hear me, but hi, Doppel. And Selcress, welcome back. It is quite good to see you again, as it always is. Next up, we have joining us ChoGal Hammerfist, award-winning author and of the soothing voice. Hello, ChoGal.
Hey guys, how's it been?
Man, I was getting a little bit anxious for a second there, and just your voice really just put me right at ease, just mellowed me right out.
That's good to hear, Pete. It's been a while since I've played, and I'm glad to be back.
It's good to have you back, ChoGal. ChoGal, can I ask you a question about your voice?
Absolutely.
Your voice is by all metrics, and I think it's not a soothing voice by any means. Like it has a lot of the characteristics of gruffness and sort of this deep tone. But why is everyone, myself included, so relaxed when they hear it? What is it about your voice that is so soothing, ChoGal? It defies logic in a lot of ways.
It does, and the reason that it is so soothing is because it's the perfect tone that, I guess, fuses with the vibrations of the air, and while it may sound kind of rough to the ears, the heart knows what the heart wants, and it is this voice.
I mean,
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, even on the ears, I don't mind it. It's very pleasant in every way.
You gotta read his 5th book for the secret of the soothing voice.
Yep.
Do you have some great tips in there on how to, like, you've written about how to have a soothing voice.
Yes, I have.
But you get into the origins in later on in the series.
Yeah, and the actual physical things that happen to your body when you do have a soothing voice.
Of course, ChoGal. Well, I won't ask for any more of the trade secrets here. I don't want you giving it away because I encourage people to go out and buy How to Have a Soothing Voice by ChoGal Hammerfist. But welcome, ChoGal. It's good to have you again.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Sword Coheir is joining us as well this evening. Hello, Sword.
Hello.
Sword, on the subject of soothing voices, you sound great. That has nothing to do with anything. I just wanted to start off by saying how glad I am to hear you so clearly.
My voice is not soothing at all. What are you talking about?
Oh, it's not saying it's a soothing thing. It's just that your audio quality is just so high. Forget all about that. How are you, Sword?
I'm alright.
Tell me, what's been new for you, Sword? I know I haven't seen you around these parts all that frequently either, but tell me, how you been?
I'm been alright. Just well, let's just say some experiments did not go.
That you're begging me to ask you questions about this, Sword. Experiments?
Well, you know how I dabble in alchemy, so
yes, and from time to time, I know this.
well, occasionally those results have explosive connotation.
I hope. I mean, I hope not too much damage. Is your keep doing all right? Is your extra dimensional house okay?
Oh, it's fine. It pretty much repairs any damage that happens to it. But I mean, I'm at the forefront when that happens.
I'm glad that you and your home are both safe after these, alchemical explosions, it sounds like. But Sword, it's good to see you out in the more traditional adventuring fields again. I welcome you back, Sword. And last, and of course not least, Othgururt, how are you?
I am, how to say, in a bit of a puzzle recently.
Really? What's the nature of this?
Someone has requested that I produce a saucepan made of bone, and I have been searching for some way to hold a shape that can hold water without any leaks.
The bone of that creature would have to be pretty massive. I was imagining first like a scapula, if I believe. I'm not as versed in bones as you are, but I think that is kind of one of the larger, wider plate bones. Am I right about that?
Yes. The problem is it has no inner depth.
Have you tried a skull?
That was my first go-to. Unfortunately, eye holes make it difficult to hold large quantities of water in.
I guess it would just have to be the bones of something very, very large, so you would carve them out. But I'm sorry that you've been having this sort of trouble, Othgururt, finding, I guess, the right bone. But there is a bone, Othgururt, that you have that has been, for lack of a better term, sort of cropping up lately. When you first were promoted to the myth tier, and you became the Lord of Bone, a particular figure, a deity of sorts, if you remember, gave you a piece of his armor, his bone armor. An individual known as Marrow, the lesser god of bone. Does Othgururt still keep that piece?
I do, yes.
Where have you kept it?
I wear it ornamentally on my Titan heart.
As that particular piece of your Titan heart, this ornament on it, it has been sort of reacting as of late. Maybe it's the troubles that you've been having, maybe it's the weather, the time of year, you're not sure what it is, but it seems to sometimes move of its own kind of volition. The bone sort of curves and changes direction so that the kind of point that it comes to, it was a broken shard, and that broken piece kind of angles and changes direction. And you've been watching the animation of this bone, and it's gotten more pronounced over time. And as you've been walking about and kind of doing your business, you finally realize that it's been dowsing. It's been pointing you somewhere. And as you kind of have come to this realization, you receive kind of a missive from Bartholomew. Othgururt, come in. Can you hear me, Othgururt?
Yes, I can hear you.
Have you been having any, for lack of a better term, I don't know, how do I put this? It's kind of a strange, it's a strange thing to ask. Have your bones been off?
Yes.
I know that's a hard question. Tell me, what's been going on with you?
Are you referring to some of my bones being more brittle than usual, or this specific peculiar bone that is trying to point in a direction like a compass?
Wait, you have a bone that's trying to point in a direction? I've been rolling, you see, I roll bones sometimes to see the future. I don't have to, but it's sort of a fun, sort of quaint way to do it, and I like doing it sometimes.
I too enjoy to roll bones.
Yes, well, when I've been rolling them, sometimes they don't roll, or they just, they've been coming up with prophecies that frankly just aren't coming true. So, I don't know, my just well, my collection of bones has been off. I just didn't know if there's a problem with... What's this one about pointing?
I am not entirely sure.
Well, if it's pointing to something, have you gone to see what it is?
That should have been my first impulse. But I have been so busy here, I have not wanted to leave the forge untended.
Do you have assistants you can hire? I'll call it in the contract. We'll bring you and the whole crew. I'd like to get to the bottom of this if we can.
I would appreciate that.
Yes, I'll send some of the best your way. I'm sure there's not much at this point that you can't handle on your own, but a team is always appreciated, yes?
I do enjoy traveling much more with company.
Very good. They will be joining you shortly, once you've tracked down the location of whatever this is, I'll, just send them to your location. And with that, your connection with Bartholomew kind of leaves you telepathically for the moment. And Othgururt, you've been given a quest to track down the location of this. Does Othgururt do anything to prepare? Do you set off immediately? How do you leave your forge?
He'll need to contact his closest in command, get them finishing orders that he was working on personally, and since he has a feeling he'll be running into that specific acquaintance, Marrow, that he had barely met before, he'll want to pack up some of his finer samples of bone to kind of brag a bit. Maybe brag isn't the right word, but...
share.
Yes.
Yes. All right. You kind of settle yourself, and it's not much to your surprise that your journey, as you kind of set out following the dowsing rod that has been kind of attached to your armor here, it begins to send you towards the Sacred Vale. And upon your path, in kind of meeting up with kind of some telepathic communication with Bartholomew, you make your way to the nearest teleportation circle within the Sacred Vale. And as the three of you, Sword, ChoGal, and Selcress, come into the scene, you've been told by Bartholomew that Othgururt needs help tracking down this strange confluence of, there's something wrong with bones, is how he put it, which is, again, a strange and broad statement. As we begin now, the three of you are teleported by Bartholomew in the traditional way from the shop, and you appear and you see Othgururt standing before you.
Who the heck are you?
Yeah, you don't know Othgururt?
I've been busy.
It is an honor to meet the two of you.
Well, I guess meet, yes, but I have heard of you before.
Oh, well, I guess it's pleasant enough to meet you, since you have heard of me, and such.
She gets all really puffed up.
Great to meet you too.
The girl that rules ice and has many ice. It is very, as the kids would say, cool.
Did you just...
I like him already.
I've got a bone to pick with him.
When I first learned to read Common, your book was one of the first I picked up and read.
I am honored.
And it is good to see you again, Sword.
Should we at least wait 5 seconds before throwing out another punch?
No. Do it! Do it! Do it!
I have no remaining puns. I apologize.
You're not a suitable dad candidate. You gotta get dad puns in before you can have a kid. Anyway,
Selcress circles Othgururt and lifts her arms up like,
I deem that you can carry me today. Up!
Very well. He'll pick up Selcress and settle her on his shoulder then. The
you
one
take,
that's less pointy.
Probably the right side. Do you have one of like the big kind of like pointed pauldrons on one side?
Yes.
Of course. All right, so you lift Selcress onto your shoulders, and I imagine you guys begin your trek forward. Your walk through the Sacred Vale. Of course, the Sacred Vale is lush and very varied in its terrain in a lot of places. But as you begin to move closer and closer in the direction, this strange kind of point to the bone, kind of just like bending and creaking in slightly different directions as it guides you through these woods, it's moving you to a little bit sparser of an area than you've seen thus far in the Sacred Vale and in any of your adventures here. A corner that none of you have been to before. And the farther into it you go, the less vegetation and just kind of divine life that you're seeing around you. The place, the Sacred Vale always has an energy about it. Well, a divine energy because of the inhabitants that live there. You can still
We might get sick every time he comes here.
And you should just hang out more on the devil's side. But it seems like you keep ending up on the more celestial side.
I
of things.
know, unicorns, man. I think there was like a unicorn one time I came here, and he was just the worst.
I feel at home here.
Well,
I have wanted to get a hold of a unicorn to work with, but they are very difficult to acquire.
It's because you're not a woman. I mean, they only come to like pyramid.
They're difficult, all right. They're a pain in the butt.
That's odd. One came up to me one time.
As you are kind of continuing and discussing unicorns, like I said, you can still feel that kind of almost celestial pressure that is kind of weighs down on you when you're here in the Sacred Vale. Not an unpleasant weight, but just a noticeable one. But the area that you're coming into, it's flatter, there's less vegetation, and as you kind of emerge through the last of the true trees in this forest, you can see over here on the precipice of the vale, there's a great kind of like rocky ravine below you. But over on one of the higher sides of it, you can see what looks like rows of almost like salt flats, and then a great basalt plateau that's kind of rising monolithic here out of the vale. And Othgururt, from what you can tell, this is the direction that, well, you're being kind of guided.
I do not believe I have been in this part of the Sacred Vale before.
Me either. Kind of reminds me of the Trash Kingdom.
A bit. There's definitely a similarity in that regard, but this is kind of a stark, almost that volcanic basalt, like whitish color to the plateau, and it looks a lot more bare rather than the, well, great heaps of trash that you see piled up. This is very, very sparse and flat, and as you begin to step over this terrain, you can feel kind of some great gusts of wind that kind of pick up here in the open space, and Othgururt, I think everyone noticed this to some extent, but Othgururt, you are the one who is probably the most perceptive of this. This is a boneyard. You're starting to notice that at all different points throughout the space, great bones are just sticking out of creatures that some of them you recognize, some of them you don't.
This is an old place.
Your path... sorry, go ahead, Othgururt.
I believe there are remnants here of things that have not been around for a long time. I am just getting that feeling.
Huh. Like what? You're the bone expert.
I believe some people call them dinosaurs.
That's concerning.
I have
Yes, but-
heard stories that they were more plentiful before a large rock came and hit some of them, and then they were less plentiful. But I am not sure if that's how the story goes.
Thought I fought one in the Baradex swamp one time.
I think
I'm pretty sure there's a few in the zoo.
these are older, once larger dinosaurs, but I am not sure.
Let's not stick around to find out.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell when you got like a bunch of dragons and stuff that still exist.
And as you are kind of walking through the
Othgururt,
space,
have you tried like hollow bone things? That could be good for a cup.
it's
They
actually a very
make
good idea.
very good straws once the marrow has been cleaned out.
Yeah, but try like the end of a dragon bone. You just saw off the end, and you got a cup.
I will try that the next time I have dragon bones on hand.
And as you're kind of walking and talking here, you can see like behind some of there are chunks of rock that stick up a little bit in places, and the terrain isn't perfectly flat. You kind of come around a corner of Othgururt, and you're staring face to face with what looks like the bones of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which you don't know the name of that creature, but it does seem to confer into your suspicions that old giant lizard bones are buried here, in addition to the other things that you kind of more recognize. But these that you find are nearing the base of this plateau, and as you're kind of near the bottom of it, the bone on your armor is pointing straight up to the top, presumably from what it looks like the top kind of center of it here. And the climb above you is steep.
This might be difficult.
Well,
Near straight up and down.
up we get, Othgururt. You can handle this, right?
I'm taking out some pipe.
Yes, I believe I can, actually. Just to be clear, how high up could I gauge this to be?
It is tall, maybe 300 feet.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's very big. This is just a steep, sheer cliff. As you're kind of looking up and gauging it, you also notice that the climb, while it's going to be difficult, isn't just sheer cliff face impossible from the looks of things, besides the kind of porous nature of some of the rock around here, which looks like it could be easily kind of gripped at. There are also what look like more bone deposits that are just sticking out and just piercing through the cliff at places that would make very good and probably pretty reliable handholds.
Alright, so here's how we're gonna do this. Is anyone here not good at climbing?
Oh, I'm riding.
She points down at Othgururt. She fully intends to ride you up the side of the cliff.
I believe that if I could get to the top, I could lower some segment of rope, but I do not have enough rope for the entire length.
I was thinking the same thing. I've got a good bit of rope, and what I think we could do is set up some piping and some rope, and basically every 50 to 100 feet, lay down the rope for people to climb up, and then get the rope back and climb up some more.
Is there enough ledges for us all to climb up?
If I may, allow me to try something to start with.
Go ahead, bone guy.
Othgururt is going to walk up to the edge of the cliff face and sort of reach his hands towards it, but instead of trying to grab the cliff face, he's trying to grab into the cliff face and just sort of start sticking his limbs halfway into the stone and climb up that way.
This is the first time Othgurt's done this, isn't it?
It is the first time. It's a weird thing for him, and he's trying to see how it goes.
Testing it hesitantly. You watch
ChoGal
as,
is just gonna go full rock climber.
well, you guys see Othgururt beyond full rock climber. You watch as Othgururt just places his hands, and they just seem to sink effortlessly into the rock as he just starts climbing hand over hand up and into this great basalt pillar. Is Selcress on your shoulders here still, or are you?
Yes, that's
Okay.
why I'm not going.
She didn't
fully
move.
into stone.
Well, I mean, there's a point where Othgururt could have kept going, where you would have had to move because you can't go through rock.
I'm not sinking fully into the stone. I'm just sinking like halfway. That way, I still have some part of my body out that she can hang on to.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so you begin kind of climbing in this way, and with this, you don't need to make a check. You can just scale the side of this thing in this manner. ChoGal, though, you're just going full
Rock climber. I am one with the rocks. My body is. I literally have an ability called Stone's Endurance.
Of course. I will give you advantage for your Goliath heritage because you have what's it called, the high altitude thing.
Yeah, high altitude's like a big thing for Goliath.
So I'll give you advantage on this athletics check. So go ahead and make me an athletics check. 18. Yeah, you're climbing up as well. And as you're working your up sword, are you just holding back for now and kind of watching?
Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. If one of us slips, we'll all probably come down.
You get about 100 feet up or so, Othgururt, when you see to your side, kind of sticking out of the side of the cliff, you can see what looks to be almost like the front and torso of a creature. By your guess, it looks it's horse-like in nature, but you don't think it's just the bones of a horse that are sticking out here. But it has that kind of front cloven like bone structure to it. And as you get up near it, you watch as the head of it just sharply turns to look at you, and then ChoGal, who's just a little bit down and below you, climbing up the side of this monolith. All of you see this bone creature react to it. ChoGal, you're in a little bit harder spot because your arms are not connected to it. It doesn't take any immediate action. It just whips around and turns and looks at you approaching. What do you guys do as you see this?
Ready myself to jump out of the way if I have to, looking for more rocks around me that I can edge over to if I need to.
Selcress will ready in action to Eldritch Blast it if it attacks.
Othgururt, anything?
We mean no harm. We are following a strange lead, and we only wish to pass.
Go ahead and make me a persuasion check. With advantage. This kind of skeletal structure looks kind of back forward and seems to go to something more of a resting position, and then towards the bottom of the cliff, you watch as out of the cliffside sword, where you are, you see a skeletal hand just pop out of the side of this monolith and kind of gesture towards you, asking you to like come closer almost. You can't see what happened up at the top, but you do see a skeletal hand pop out of the cliffside and beckon towards you, Sword.
How big is this skeletal hand?
It looks like a humanoid-ish skeleton.
I proceed with caution.
All right, you walk up to it. It seems to be reaching out towards you. It extends further its arm from whatever is moving within the surface of this pillar. It's reaching out towards you, trying to almost like offer you its hand.
Who goes there?
No immediate response. beckons again, trying to reach out towards you. Up at the area of the cliffside where Othgururt and ChoGal and Selcress are. Othgururt, you are you just continuing your climb after it kind of comes to rest?
Yes, cautiously.
Yep. ChoGal, next to you, a hand extends from the cliff, offering itself towards you. The same kind of manner in which it did to Sword.
And Sword ignored it?
Sword, we're still waiting on what Sword's gonna do. But Sword walked up to it at least.
Yeah, I'm gonna prep an action just in case something happens.
What's the action you're prepping?
I'm gonna prep my channel divinity feature for turn or destroy.
All right.
This is difficult because, like, I'm curious, but if it looks like it's about to pull me somewhere I wouldn't want to go, I will pull it out, basically.
So you're ready in action to try and basically contest a strength roll against this thing.
Yes.
If it tries to drag you in, but are you gonna accept it?
Yes, I will accept it.
All right. It grabs onto you, and it does begin to pull a bit. It pulls you tight to the side of the cliff. And stop me if anything happens that you're uncomfortable with. I guess that's already maybe a little bit, but but let me know when that ready to action triggers.
Okay.
If it does. It pulls you to the side of the cliff, and then more hands begin to appear on either side of you. Some of them larger. One hand kind of reaches out, and it's almost like the hand of what looks like a skeletal giant that starts to reach towards you. And each one in turn begins to grab onto you and just push you up the cliff one at a time, handing you off like just handing you off from each skeleton to each skeleton in tow, as you are just pushed up the edge of the cliff, almost, well, not instantly, but at a much faster pace than you would have been climbing it.
Follow your instincts, kids.
And as you kind of reach forward towards the top, Othgururt, you've been kind of continuing to climb, I believe, yes, cautiously?
Yes.
Your climb is a lot easier given the nature in which you're doing so. You kind of, as you get up to the top, Othgururt, you feel as you place your hand into the side of the rock that the inside of the rock seems to be shifting. And before you, the cliff face almost starts to like part and open up, and you can see as the rock kind of moves to its side, leaving room for a platform here on the edge near the top. ChoGal, you are kind of deposited onto this platform. Meanwhile, Sword, you're still at the bottom. Do you accept the hand?
Yes.
Once at this point, you can see your friends up above that are being like rapidly moved by these hands up towards the top.
After ChoGal realizes what's happening, he's gonna go, wee!
And Sword, the same thing, you are also brought up to this point. And as that platform kind of begins to appear on the surface of the rock, you watch as just bone, porcelain, white steps begin to appear, raising up towards the top of the platform, a bone staircase that leads you to whatever lies at this plateau's apex. Sword, you arrive in time. ChoGal, it's maybe a slightly unnerving but not unpleasant experience.
It's fine.
And Othgururt, you lead the way. Do you begin moving up the stairs, or?
This is very good taste in architecture.
Let's go, come on!
Okay. I am sorry I am moving slow. I am trying to appreciate the view.
Fine, you can appreciate it, I guess.
And the view is ever changing, Othgururt, as you see and you begin to move higher and higher up this cliff, following this bone staircase. The cliff top around you is beginning to change as bone furniture is emerging from places. You can see as you kind of crest to the apex, and it's now just a flat plateau around you. What looks like the ribs of what has to be a Tarrasque emerge, forming a very loose cage around the top of the plateau, kind of hanging up and over. All of it centered around here in the center of it, what appears to be maybe the skull of a giant that is positioned here at its core. And as you kind of move up to the top, you kind of walk up and you can see this giant skull. And over to the side of it is what looks to be a hammer of some kind. It's carved from the skull of some creature. Their head shape must have been very strange, and then the bonework that's affixed to it is kind of a long handle. But this looks like a bone forge hammer that you're seeing kind of leaning against this great giant skull. And as you're looking at this giant skull, you start to see kind of where it's been worn and hewn. And what you are looking at, it appears to be a hammer and anvil.
Selcress was scoping out some of the bone furniture earlier. There was a couch that caught her eye that looked pretty classy.
Yeah, all of it does. Everything that's kind of appearing up here is very much of that kind of vein. And Othgururt, in your mind, you begin to hear a voice kind of whisper to you. And it just says, "Show me what you can do." And as you're standing here on this bone platform, almost instantly after that voice speaks to you in this way, you begin to feel your senses extend around you, and you feel a sudden connection to this location. And you can sense all of the bones that are in this region. And you begin to realize that you have a power here that you've never had when you're forging before. You can just conjure any bone that you want before you right now, no matter what it may be, to, well, create something. And it seems to want you to create, well, more than one thing. Othgururt, as you're being tested by the deity Marrow in this moment, I would like you to pick me 4 magic items of your choosing that you make out of bone in this moment. 1 for you and 1 for each of your companions. They can be anything that is in the Dungeon Master's Guide. You can just pick it. So if you don't have any ideas, you can also do things like specific things, like, you could just do a +3 greatsword or something like that. But pick any 4 magic items, Othgururt.
Can he ask us what he wants?
He can do what he wants to do.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna actually need a moment to think.
Hey. Othgurt,
Selcress taps his face, because this has all been in his mind right now, right?
This is just an instant of revelation that happens as he stands before this kind of...
Yeah, Selcress will tap his face and snap her fingers in front of his face.
Hey.
Yes.
Earth to Lizard Boy, what's going on up in this nugget?
Well, not the earth, but the bones in the earth have reached out to me, and I could sense them.
She gives you a suspicious squint.
I will prove it. You are in contract, yes?
You talking about me being a warlock?
Is that the term?
Yeah. Although really, he's, it's a mutually beneficial contract. It's a pact.
There is a. I will show you. I cannot put it into words. Othgururt will kind of reach down towards the floor and try to pull up splinters of femurs.
And what do you? So you pull them up from the ground, and you watch as these splinters just seem to pull through the top of this forged skull, as they now just kind of rest before you, exactly as you envisioned them, and exactly as you felt them down in the earth. It feels almost in many ways like when you use your Garden of Bones. It feels like just being able to sense things, but on a scale that is grandiose.
If possible, I will likely need a piece of ice from you. I do not feel this will be complete without it.
All right.
Selcress will scuttle down off of his shoulder and pull out
How much do you need? Do you need a lot or do you need a little?
Just a piece, a chunk, like palm of hand.
Fine.
Selcress was about to claim this place as part of her frozen eminence, but she instead throws down an ice knife.
Will that do?
Around that ice knife, he will interweave the splinters of femur to where they come up in a spiral pattern with the notches, the end of the bone towards the top and all of the pointed splinters towards the bottom, forming this rod shape.
+3 Rod of the Pack Keeper.
Yes.
He hands you back this Rod of the Pack Keeper, Selcress, and for today, this item that he just created, it does not require attunement.
Oh, that's nifty.
You can give yourself a nice +3 to spell save DC if you would so wish to do so.
Alright, I have to look at it.
This is what I feel. This arrangement. I can do other things too, I think it is.
You should show us then, because this was cool. This one's cool. I like this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's very powerful. And Othgururt, you've never just felt like the bone just works the way that you want it to. You've never felt this degree of control. I mean, you have mastered the art of working bone, but you are mortal, and it is divine intervention that is allowing you to do this in this moment. What do you do next?
Very good question. Do you two have any requests or suggestions?
Well, I could use some good armor. Looking at his old split mail. I've had this for a while.
I see. I apologize for having to ask. I am not well versed in the divine natures and teachings. I do not know what fits well with you. I have only loosely heard of
Well, heavy armor. I guess some plate would be good.
There's one thing Othgurt's heard of, and he'll start trying to pull up, scapulas bound onto a rib cage with a spine length up along the back and just skulls on the shoulders and basically a plate arrangement, and try to pull armor of invulnerability into existence.
Oh my goodness.
Oh shit.
All right, as you begin to kind of run your hands over the armor, you begin to think about just what you want the shape of it to take. And every bone that you envision, there is a perfect bone somewhere within this basalt monolith here that is that. And you pull the pieces together and they forge into what you want, not just the shape, but the effect. You create an armor of invulnerability, which you hand over to ChoGal.
Yes. Sorry.
You got 2 more. One for Sword.
Oh, yeah.
Sword. I know that you are well protected in the head area. Would you
Yes.
also... sorry.
Well, I already have so much good equipment, but I do have just a ordinary shield, so you think you could come up with something for that?
I will try. I know there is a type of shield I have always wanted to see myself, and I do not believe I could recreate it, but perhaps I could pull together something similar. You did mention there's Tarask going around here.
Absolutely.
So Othgururt will try to pull from that, while also pulling up a rib cage that is small enough that it would fit around someone's forearm, and
a wolf rib cage, maybe, like a young wolf rib cage. Yep.
And focusing on the strength and sturdiness of the Tarask, and just how it absolutely does not care about mages. He'll do this like 3-layer arrangement of the regular buckler and then the 2 a more bulbous shape for the I forget what it's called, but it's like a parrying shield with a final stud on the very center of it, and try to produce a Spellguard shield.
You create a Spellguard shield. In the pattern that you do, again, just each swing of this kind of magical hammer that you're wielding here, just creating things as you will them. And before long, Sword, you got yourself a Spellguard shield. And Othgururt, only one person remains for you to make something for. What do you make for yourself?
Is everyone satisfied?
Yeah,
More than satisfied, friend.
I deem you worthy of being a champion. Congratulations.
Selcress swings her rod around and twirls it like a flag.
I am honored. Thank you. Now, I will attempt to fasten myself something as well, I believe. Truthfully, I am not great with shields, and I don't believe I could create any sort of armor that would do justice compared to what Bartholomew has made for me. So I will have to make a kind of weapon. Let me see.
What does Othgururt begin to create?
Very likely some sort of a axe. I'm unfamiliar with a lot. I pulled on like the very vestiges of my knowledge of items in the DMG to reference those.
I mean, those
3.
were great choices.
I'm sorry, I'm just blanking a little bit, and I'm trying to think.
Can he make like some magic items that are like the elemental summoning braziers or braziers? Whichever is the right way to say that word that doesn't mean bra.
He could, but you said that you're interested in making an axe.
Yes. Othgarurt's mentality here is still very practical, so the further reaches of magic items and the wondrous item range would not be the first to reach his mind.
You begin to think for a moment, and as you're just envisioning, you don't know what it is that you want, but you begin to think of an axe, and it is honed. Like, just describe to me what the axe that you would make for yourself looks like, and what bones you would use to create it.
Similar to the last axe that he had made, the blade will be an arrangement of lower jaws, but instead of just one set of jaws, it'll probably be like 4 in an alternating pattern to where there's just this wide array of teeth in this serrated axe blade pattern, bound to probably a long, narrow skull that's set backwards. So the blade is on the back of the skull, and on the other side is the actual face of it. And that is locked onto the spinal column that it originally was belonging to, with a set of 4 ribs that are tied in sinew and etched in a way where they have notches to just really wrap that sinew into. And it's a bit like a cross between a mace and an axe, I guess, actually, because of the width of the skull and the rib bones.
And as you create this vicious, almost saw-like axe, because that's what it sounds like on the blade, kind of these like jagged edges, the thing that you end up making, it appears to be something that you've heard of and was in the back of your mind, but you'd never heard of an axe of this nature, but you end up putting together a Vorpal axe. Are you familiar with the Vorpal sword?
Somewhat.
On a roll of a natural 20, you can decapitate your target, felling them in a single foe. Felling your foe in a single strike. In addition, it's a +3 weapon.
Oh.
It's powerful.
It's a pretty classic and good item as you create, a Vorpal axe. And as you finish this intense-looking kind of bone weapon, a voice from behind you this time, no longer speaking to you in your mind. He must have appeared somewhere in the negative space around most of you. He speaks to you. It's good work that you've done here, Othgururt. Might I say...
Hello.
We have never properly met. My name is Marrow. I am the lesser god of bone. He holds out a hand.
It is an honor to meet you. I am Othgururt Charirgix, self-proclaimed, admittedly, Lord of Bone.
Yes, and he kind of smiles a little bit about that as you say it. He doesn't seem angry about it per se. He looks. The work that you have done, as I've been following your career with quite a bit of interest for a while now. There are few who appreciate the frame of each living thing. It is bones upon which we are built. But you, Othgururt, Lord of Bone, you do. Do you like my... He kind of looks towards it. Crucible.
I am very impressed with it and amazed. I have not been able to produce a bone anvil that has held up for much use. And that is the least of what you have done here.
It is an old storm giant. Quite a story of his end. but he kind of looks past. Let's see what else we have here. And he walks over towards each of you, looking at the item that Othgururt gave you. And like he first steps over to you, Selcress, kind of leans down. Hello there.
Hello.
What do you have?
She looks all puffed up like she's ready to go. And she holds out the rod.
And he made it for me, and it's a rod. Pack keeper is really good.
He kind of looks over the object, looks over you. Befitting. He steps next towards you, sword. This shield, I presume.
Correct.
Tell me about yourself. What is your name?
Sword Coheir.
And he made you a shield. That's very funny.
So Selcress leans down and whispers into Othgart's ear.
It's my name. It's kind of rude.
Really quietly into his ear.
You watch as
will turn and whisper, perhaps he already knew of your...
Well, that's fine then.
he kind of leans over towards and looks back at you as you're having this kind of quiet conversation. He goes, I overheard it, as it were, Selcress. And he steps towards next and last to you, ChoGal. What did he make for you?
Yes, this armor. It's pretty cool.
He goes over and he kind of hits it a little bit, and you can kind of hear just a little ding, the thunk off of it as he flicks it, and he goes, it's well, it's sturdy work. As he turns back towards you, Othgururt. Shall we see how it holds up?
What do you have in mind?
A test, perhaps. And with that, you begin to hear the ground around you rumble. And from it, you see various hands begin to reach up and climb out of the kind of monolith around you as what look like skeletons, countless skeletons, begin to climb up and out of the top of the monolith. And he goes, show me what these weapons can do. And he kind of begins kind of walking away, and eventually, as his steps, he just seems to sink back down into the platform. I would like you all to roll for initiative.
Cool. Yeah, this is exactly what I was expecting, honestly.
I don't know if I like this guy. You know, Levistus would never pull this on me. He gave me chips to go get gambling in the Nine Hells, you know. I won a lot of souls that day.
Don't they do nothing but cheat?
Well, yeah, that's the fun part.
We're gonna go ahead and roll for the old skeleton horde. But the first to act in this initiative is going to be Selcress. You watch as row upon row of skeleton begin to emerge from the ground, all of them kind of like moving and clattering. ChoGal and Sword. One thing that's really throwing you off about these skeletons as they're beginning to animate here is the place that you're in. ChoGal, with your divine sense, you know that this is definitely consecrated ground of some kind. I mean, you're in the Sacred Vale, but you are not, neither of you are getting a strong instinct of undeath from these skeletons. And that is definitely weird for skeletons. So, the first to act, Selcress. What do you do as this huge pile of skeletons begins to animate? There might be like hundreds of these things all around the flat plateau that you're on, all coming to get life at once.
Okay. Would you call them a swarm? I think you'd call them a swarm.
I'd call them a horde, but you may think of them how you wish.
Fair enough. There are a lot of skeleton-bones.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Alright. Then I'll have, you know what? I don't need Levi right now. I got a cool spell that I'm gonna do. It's called Fireball.
Go ahead and roll me a fireball.
Yep, at 5th level. DC 20.
These skeletons are all around you. Are you still riding on Othgururt's shoulders?
Yeah, of course.
Othgururt, you cool with that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So
She wouldn't have left unless he made her.
yeah, just making sure. Fireball casts out from kind of this higher vantage, and you just kind of throw it into the emerging crowd of skeletons as it's beginning to appear like all around you in places. And with that fireball, you kill 37 skeletons.
Cool.
As there's just an explosion, bones clatter all about the space, and as they crash into the monolith, they all just kind of sink down into it, and there's just a huge empty circle of where that little chunk of skeletons was. The rest of them are all kind of clattering and beginning to draw like swords and bows and things of that nature. That's going to bring us next in. I'm sorry, do you have anything else on
going
your
to
turn?
bring us to Levi.
Oh,
Yeah. Levi's here, and he appears, and he's gonna sting one of them.
go ahead and make an attack roll.
27
27 will hit. You watch as Levi begins to just fly through the crowd of skeletons, tail kind of whipping out. And as he's kind of crashing into the skeletons, he manages to kill 3 of them. It seems that piercing damage is not the most effective tool against these guys. And also they are immune to poison. But he does kill 3 skeletons with his tiny imp tail.
Good job, Levi.
Which brings us next in initiative to ChoGal. What would you like to do,
Okay.
ChoGal?
Well, I'm gonna shield the face first, get double bonus.
You have your Armor of Invulnerability with your Shield of Faith on it.
Yeah, because I'm not using an actual shield right now. Actually, you know what? I am using my shield. I'm gonna use my Mithril Katana right now instead of, my Glaive of Wow.
Alright. Go ahead and swing away.
1 second. I have to reactivate my shield. Clear to be able to have double shield, basically. Okay. Alright, here we go, Mithril Katana. And do I have to activate it? Is that a bonus action or an action? It's a bone. I don't know, as an action, it needs to get the fine word causing the katana. Alright, you know, I'm just gonna do that right away. Just gonna action to activate my Mithril Katana.
What does this do?
Basically, I will link it right here. It emits daylight in 30-foot radius for the next minute. A good creature which starts in turn heals 5 hit points. Additionally, all food and water is purified as if affected by the purified food and drink spell.
These skeletons are not good creatures, so that's good for you. They are very neutral.
Unfortunately, that doesn't help you, Selcress. If you're not a good creature.
I love that, though. Anything else on your turn?
That is my turn. My katana is activated and shedding bright light.
Yeah, He-Man in the middle of the battlefield. You put your katana, I imagine, up in the air, and it just begins to irradiate.
I have the power!
That's such a He-Man katana. As we move next into the initiative, which I believe is Sword. What would you like to do, Sword?
I'm gonna go throw out my trusty and true spirit guardian.
This is a great time for that. Your spirit guardians emerge and just kind of explode about and around you. And at the start of the skeleton's turn, they're going to roll some damage. That's your action. You have a bonus action.
And I just toss up my shield for now.
All right, you're just getting into a defensive position. The spirit guardians all appear. As it passes to the skeleton horde's turn, they're going to make a Constitution saving throw, which is a failure. And in the area around you, 11 skeletons kind of crumble and are battered away to dust as your spirit guardians kind of push them away and return them to the ground. Which brings us now to the skeletal horde. Which a lot of those skeletons die as they kind of go in and begin kind of surrounding you, but these skeletons are all around, and you guys are very quickly being sort of like engulfed by skeletons in a lot of ways. From kind of a back area nearby, I'm going to need... I'm gonna go after Othgururt. I need you to make me a dexterity saving throw. With advantage, your save will be for both you and Selcress.
Quick question.
Yes.
ChoGal is a paladin, I recall?
Correct. If you're within 10 feet of me, you do get a +1, because my charisma's only a +1 right now. The saves.
Better than nothing.
Everything counts. A 20 is going to get you there. So you're going to take half of this damage. You watch as a number of the skeletons at the back kind of begin to raise up and throw. It looks like they don't even have bows in their hands. It's just singular arrows carved from bone that they are just taking and throwing physically and crashing down upon you. So you're going to take half of that 34 damage, both Selcress and Othgururt.
Would it be possible for me to block Selcress from getting hit by this and just take the full damage myself?
That's going to be kind of questionable. I think that, I think that that's allowable. You can kind of like throw your back over if you want to do that in place of your dexterity saving throw since you succeeded, and you take 34, Selcress takes nothing.
All right, I will do that.
That's 7 piercing damage. I do not know why that appeared. That's weird. But you take 34 points of piercing damage in that case. And then from all around you, this first one's going to be against you, ChoGal. That's a 12. I assume that misses.
Oh, that definitely misses.
And this next one's going to be against you, Sword. Oh, that's a 25. Oof, that's a beefy hit. 25?
Yeah, hits.
As their rain of strikes goes down, and you watch as they're just climbing over themselves on the Spirit Guardians, and the Spirit Guardians are killing some of them, but not all of them, as they begin to pile up, and just, they just stab into you. You take 34 points of piercing damage in just these successive strikes from the horde of skeletons. And additionally, you are currently grappled by skeletons, as there's a whole bunch of them that are just kind of climbing onto you. That's going to bring us next in initiative to Othgururt.
Hold on.
You are surrounded on all sides. You just took a bunch of arrows.
This is going to get rough, but I will not have any harm come to my small friend here.
Othgururt will enter a more mild than usual rage, but still a rage. And take a couple of swings towards the skeletons that have approached.
Go ahead and swing away. Are these reckless or normal?
These are reckless.
Okay. That is going to absolutely hit on both counts. Roll damage. 21 and 21. 42 points of damage. Othgururt, can you describe to me what it looks like as you literally kill 42 skeletons in this horde?
Othgururt is very, very often compared to a blender. He has this unique way of fighting when he's angry, where he just does wide almost spinning arcs of slashes. And in this case, he's taking full advantage of these big, broad swings that he usually makes to just cleave from like one side of the room to the other, knocking skeletons down, shattering some of their bones as he hits, just not holding back on smashing through them.
And as your axe just clatters through, piercing through the air with just incredible lightness and just deftness, that you've maybe never wielded a weapon quite so, well, powerful, frankly. You swing through and there's just a wake of bones behind you that sink into the ground, and just like that, this horde is reduced to more of an army now. As we move next in initiative, I'm sorry, do you have anything else on your turn?
That is everything I can do.
I mean, it's an outrageous amount of damage. Next initiative to the top, and you see as this horde is already starting to dwindle, more creatures are starting to raise up from the ground. You now see over on the side what looks like a giant hand reaches up through the monolith and begins pushing out of the ground what look like skeletons befitting the size of those giant ones whose skull was that forge. A giant skeleton appears. Another one from the other side of the monolith. Two of these giant skeletons kind of join the battle here, and they are going to roll initiative here at the top of the order. And they're gonna go dead ass last. As we move next in initiative to you, Selcress. What would you like to do, Selcress?
Yeah, me. Selcress is gonna flip her banner. So, flip! 13 temporary hit points to everyone!
Everyone gains, or 13?
Yep.
Cool.
It's
Everyone
in-
gets
it's in the
13
roll.
points.
Or it's in the text.
Yep, I see there.
Yep. And then she's gonna take out a pocket watch.
Interesting.
Yep. And she's gonna flick it open and, just wind the time back a little bit.
Wait, what?
Yeah, this is the time ticker.
What does this do? I don't remember this.
It's basically an action surge.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Selcress is
Okay.
action surging.
I forgot that you were action surging. I forgot that you could do this. All right, you action surge. What do you do?
Selcress is gonna do an infernal decree as well.
You watch as Selcress does the rallying banner, and then seemingly next to Selcress is another Selcress who does the infernal decree, which you make the whole area cold, and Levi becomes a monster, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's true.
Levi's form kind of erupts as he becomes this terrible, much higher stationed devil, and the area grows icy cold, and the bones grow brittler.
Yes. He has large ice spikes coming out of his back now, and he's roughly people-sized. He's people.
He's people. Anything else on your turn, Selcress? I imagine there's a moment where a confused Selcress is standing next to another Selcress who's summoning Levi, and then goes, "Oh, I should use my go back in time move."
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's all for you.
Yeah, that's it for me. I think that eats up my bonus action.
Yeah,
so.
it's a pretty good turn. ChoGal, what would you like to do, ChoGal?
Well, I can't find another action to do this, but I am activating my armor of invulnerability.
All right. Your armor has made you invulnerable.
For
And
10 minutes.
a good time for it because it seems the skeleton horde hits like an absolute truck. Anything else on your turn?
I have a bonus action which I have nothing I can use it
Armor of
for.
invulnerability makes you doesn't make you invulnerable, right? It just gives you resistance to everything.
It
Well,
actually makes him
it
invulnerable.
makes you resistant by default. If you use your action to activate it, it makes you immune to non-magical damage
All
for 10
right.
minutes.
That's a pretty good item. That's a good item. Jesus. All right.
Oh yeah, it is. That's all like a help bonus action, can I?
Say again?
I don't suppose I could use a health action for bonus action, can I?
No, unfortunately not. That's a rogue thing.
Well, it's all for me. You just see as he's still powering up and his armor reacts to his shield.
Okay.
And then he finally brings it down and he's ready to go.
Sword, what would you like to do?
First, I'm gonna pop my bonus action, do a masculine word.
Oh, I forgot to mention, everyone who has a good alignment, doesn't matter what kind of good alignment, heals 5 HP.
Alright. People who heal 5.
Yeah, that's great for good people.
That's real great for good people.
Othgururt, you are neutral, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm neutral too.
Oh, damn, only
that's
ChoGal.
useless. Good job, guys.
Be more good. This is...
Yeah, jeez, guys, be good.
12 points of healing to everyone. A more equal opportunity heal. 12 to all. Anything else on your turn, Sword?
Let's see. I guess I'll use this opportunity to just take a swing at the.
Going after the Horde?
Well, they're right on top of me.
Alright. Go for it. A 7 actually just misses. They're kind of climbing all over you and you can't quite get like a good grip. You can't get quite a good grip on it and they manage to push you off. Is there anything else, unfortunately, on your turn, Sword?
No, my turn. My actions.
Alright, that's going to bring us to the foe turn. The Horde is going to... this time the skeletons are going to rain arrows down on you, ChoGal. I would ask you to make a dexterity saving throw, but...
I just stand there like a man.
Excellent choice on that. You watch as the arrows just hail down and strike into ChoGal, and they all just, Othgururt, this armor that you created, you see, as just almost, it seems like a barrier protecting him, like goes over even his skin and his head, as the arrows just harmlessly just fall away. Completely ineffectual. That's only applies to non-magical or magical damage as well.
Non-magical. It specifically says non-magical damage.
So these arrows are non-magical, so you're good.
Cool. If it was magical, that would be the most overpowered armor in all of existence.
Yeah. I mean, I was already more powerful than I thought it was. It's terrifying. And that's all their attack against you. They're going to attack you, Othgururt, once with their hail blades, and they're going to go after, I think, Selcress as well.
I think it's advantage on me.
Yep, that is true. Which they have a pretty good to hit anyway, but that's a 19.
That hits.
For 27 points of piercing damage, which is going to be halved for you because you are raging down to half of 27. I'll leave that to you.
14 or 13?
13 then. Of course, and to use Selcress. Oh, that's a 25. That's going to hit, I imagine, 427.
Yep, I'll use my reaction to boot that off.
Levi takes 27 points of damage, but both of you are also now kind of grappled by skeletons around you. As you've been surrounded in the immediate vicinity right now. There's also 2 of these big skeletons that are coming up. Othgururt, what would you like to do?
Oh yeah, hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, at the start of their turn, a bunch of them died. Can you roll that for me, Sword? Also, I need you to make a concentration check from the damage you took, since we're still
I
on
did.
sort of-
It was a 15. It was 15.
Great. In that case, you kill, they're gonna roll for it. You kill 27 more skeletons with Spirit Guardians. That sounds about right. As now we move to you, Othgururt. The Horde is dwindling in a major way.
Othgururt will continue his pressing forward, stepping into the Horde and slashing more.
Okay. Yeah, you're currently grappled, so you can't move, but you could just kill all of the skeletons grappling you.
Well, stepping into the Horde that's grappling him, so just being really in their face.
So go ahead and make me an attack roll. 17 hit.
I should have said
25 more gonna hit, and so is 28. Roll damage on the first one.
This.
Oh my god, brutal. Roll damage on the first one. The first one's enough to kill all the skeletons grappling you and Selcress.
Okay, cool.
So then now you have your movement.
And he presses forward, growling in a way that I don't think my throat could handle right now.
Fair enough. You swing to roll damage on that Vorpal Great Axe and Hungry Bite. Another... Oh my god, another massive amount of damage as you slice and swing through. Again, just a whirlwind amongst this horde of skeleton, and the horde is no longer a horde, it's now some skeletons. Especially from the Spirit Guardians in this. Anything else on your turn, Othgururt?
Aside from stepping slightly back, assuming that there's nothing still alive in my immediate presence, stepping back.
None of these things are alive.
Well, nothing animate in my immediate presence.
There's nothing when you step back, but there is when a giant skeleton begins to run up towards you. And they are going to make 3 scimitar attacks against you. That's a crit.
Oh boy!
That's 24, and that's a crit.
Oh boy!
All of that hits. You might be able to guess.
That's going to be on the first one, 28, which halves to 14, and then so you're going to take 14, 7, and 14 points of damage. Actually, a pretty good sizable chunk of physical damage dealt to Othgururt right there, against all odds, as this giant skeleton crashes down with a massive bone scimitar. The other one runs up to you, ChoGal, and is going to make an attack. Do you take it? Do you just take the hit?
I mean, it's, yeah, I guess. It's
Doesn't
just...
appear to imagine. It just... His scimitar just flies back against the blow.
I raise my shield and effortlessly just boom.
And as the giant kind of looks down and just sees that you're just impervious right now, this massive skeleton just reaches down and is going to use its last 2 attacks to try and grapple you. That's a 16 contested with athletics or acrobatics. Oh wait, that's you. I just assumed it wouldn't because your athletics is so high. It grabs onto you, ChoGal, and lifts you up off the ground. You are currently being grappled. It can't hurt you. Maybe it could throw you somewhere.
That still probably wouldn't do much. I mean, it would still be not magical.
It wouldn't hurt you.
It'd be really inconvenient.
Yeah, it would move you away. But you're just staring face to face with this giant skeleton. As we move to the top of the initiative, Selcress, the horde has become some skeletons. And there's 2 big uns. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the top of the round as well. And you all hear what sounds like a terrible clattering of bones. Wider and louder than it. And kind of climbing up this time over the side of the monolith, what looks like a massive skeletal dragon appears. Its wings made of bone, unable to take flight, but it begins kind of crawling around the ground as a skeleton dragon is gonna go ahead and roll initiative.
Okay. How far away is that?
That's like 100 feet away.
Okay.
And that is all. So that's your turn, Selcress. What would you like to do?
Yep. Selcress is gonna hurl some Eldritch Blast at the dragon.
Fire away.
Alright. 29 and 26.
Both hit. Roll damage. Nice. For
21.
For 21 points of damage. They crash in. You watch as some of the bones kind of crack on the skeletal dragon as it lets out a... as it's trying to make, like, it's trying to roar, but it's just bone. Anything else on your turn, Selcress? Some Levi attacks are in the mix?
Yeah, Levi attacks are in the mix. He's gonna hurl flame at one of the 2 giant skeletons.
Alright, fire away.
Come on, Levi. There it goes, 19.
For 13 points of fire damage, absolutely. Um,
And roll 20's being a little bit slow for me.
Is that supposed to be a +0, a 3d6 +0?
Hmm?
Is that attack supposed to be a 3d6 +0 for the fire damage?
Yeah.
Curious.
9 points of fire damage. So a total of 21. Anything else on your turn?
That'll be it.
All right. That's going to bring us to ChoGal. What would you like to do, ChoGal?
Cool, this guy needs to let me go, so he's gonna get smacked. I'm being grappled. Does that mean I have disadvantage?
No, you're not restrained. You're just grappled.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna... Where is it? There it is. Just gonna smack him a couple
Seems
times.
like you should be because he's picking you up, but that's just how it works. 15 is going to hit. 11 is going to miss.
I'm just gonna stack a smite on that, you know?
Yeah, do it.
Second level, which is... What, 3D? Whatever smite is, 38? And this doesn't count as undead, does it?
So it's 21. It's actually not. It is a construct, technically.
Alright, so... Another 17.
Animated bones, but not necrotically.
Okay.
17.
Another 17.
Okay. That's a huge chunk of damage. That giant skeleton is not looking great. As we move next to, Sword Coheir. Sword, what would you like to do?
I thought the dragon was next.
Oh, you're correct. I forgot about the dragon. I forgot to put him into the thing. So the dragon is going to step forward, and it lets out a terrifying roar. I need all of you to make me wisdom saving throws, as it's going to use its frightful presence, which it retains.
I
Probably more
am-
frightful.
I think I'm okay.
You are okay. You are okay. Othgururt, Selcress, you're a little scared of this dragon. There's a big giant skeleton dragon. Dragons aren't supposed to be skeletons, and that one is.
Actually, is she within 10 feet of me? Or is she a bit further away?
I think at this point you guys have split up a little bit, but also the +1 wouldn't get you there, as it is exactly a 19 that you were looking for. So currently, Selcress, you're frightened. Levi's seen thousands of skeletal dragons, and after it uses its frightful presence, it's going to run up to. It's going to run up to you, Othgururt, and make. Actually, no, he's going to go after you, Sword, because I think you're alone right now, Sword. The skeletal dragon begins to just drag itself along the ground, and it's all the way on the other side, so it uses its whole turn to get up to you, but there's a skeletal dragon bearing down on you. I need you to roll Spirit Guardian's damage, because the Spirit Guardian's procs when it enters into it. It is probably going to take, yeah, it takes half or all of that Spirit Guardian's damage, which is a significant amount as we move to the next initiative, which is now you, Sword. What would you like to do? There's a skeletal dragon right in front of you.
Mass healing word, everybody, for 14 health.
That would be great if I had lost anything.
I, for one, appreciate your effort.
Hey, Levi appreciates it.
Levi gives you a thumbs up. And like a devil smile.
And the dragon's just right there, right?
Yeah. Just right up in front of you.
All right. And then I'm going to, I guess I'll throw.
Go ahead and swing away. That's what you're doing. 13 is going to just miss, unfortunately. The skeletal dragon.
Damn it.
Yeah, it's a little tougher than the horde was. Anything else on your turn?
I'm going to step back
That will provoke an opportunity attack. Is that cool?
Never mind then.
Okay. That's going to bring us next initiative to... it would be the skeletons, but they have dispersed to be little skeletons. Othgururt. There's 2 giant skeletons and 1 skeletal dragon. What do you want to do?
Upon seeing the skeletal dragon, it's a little bit early, but Othgururt doesn't care. He's going to up the ante of his rage. He has to get serious now. He has to get in the anger zone and really feel the rage.
All right.
Highway to the anger zone.
You feel yourself being taken over even more so by your anger as you kind of allow that to seep in. What do you do?
2 reckless attacks as Othgururt kind of hops a bit so that he can try to slash real good into the closest giant skeleton and cut it down to size.
Go ahead and make me. Go ahead and make me 2 attack rolls. Recklessly, I still assume.
Yes.
A
Oh, thank goodness.
31 does hit, as it turns out. Go ahead and roll. Go ahead and roll damage for me on both of those. And on that 31, go ahead and flip a coin for me.
All right. Let me do the coin first.
Roll a d2. All right. Nothing happens. Roll both damages though. That's going to be another sizable chunk. 14, and then 20. Okay, yeah. Another huge chunk of damage on this giant skeleton. This giant skeleton already got battered. This is the one that you were attacking before. Oh no, Selcress went after the dragon. Okay, yeah. That is...
Levi beat up the skeleton.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, that one had damage on it. So yeah, that skeleton is pretty beat up, and it's looking like it's ready to collapse soon, but that's not quite enough to finish it off. Anything else on your turn, Othgururt?
Everything I can do.
Is it an action to go into frenzied, or bonus
it's
action?
a bonus action to rage again, so that I can go into frenzy. I have to activate it when I go into rage.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. All right, cool. In that case, that's going to bring us to
Big Skelly.
Big Skellies are gonna. That one's gonna go after you again, Othgururt. It still has advantage on those attacks, so it's gonna whack, whack, whack. Those actually, that's the first one is a 17, the second one's a 12, and the third one is a 10. I assume 17. Does that hit?
No.
All right, those all miss as you are battering them away with your armor. The other giant skeleton, it's gonna go over. It begins running over to the edge of the platform with you in its hand, ChoGal, because you never broke your grapple. It gets to the edge. It looks like it's about to just jump off the edge with you, but it's its whole turn getting to the edge.
How beat up does it look?
Pretty beat up.
So like a good couple strikes were taken out, you think?
Maybe.
With some
It'd be
smites
close.
in there?
You think it might be close if you were to miss one, but who knows?
I don't want to climb all the way up there again. That would be so lame.
You're gonna have to take a risk or try and break out.
I've got a different thing I can do. I was gonna do something else, but I've got something I can do.
Well, we'll come to that, but first it is your turn, Selcress. What would you like to do, Selcress?
So ChoGal's in a little sticky position.
Don't worry about me. I'll be okay.
Are you sure?
I promise you.
Okay. Well, if you're sure, then I'm gonna just beat up the dragon. You ready for this, Levi?
And Selcress cracks her knuckles.
What do you do?
It's just Selcress's full bombardment mode, so Levi's gonna... that was bad. That's not great.
14 is actually going to hit.
Well, that's good.
Does not have a lot of AC. All in scales are gone. Anything else?
Eldritch Blasts.
7, 7, 6, 6, or 7, 6, 6, 13, 19 points of damage. Those attacks were at disadvantage because you were afraid, but they still hit. So they do a ton of damage. Anything else on your turn?
No, I'm good.
Besides rolling for against fear.
Yeah, you
yeah,
can
I
roll
should do
again
that.
to try and break fear. You roll a bunch of damage. Good thing you're on Othgururt, so you can definitely move closer because you go where Othgururt does. We move next in initiative to
Is that good enough?
ChoGal, you're right.
Am I unfeared?
You are unfeared. You snap out of it. As we move to ChoGal, what would you like to do, ChoGal?
Cool, I'm gonna Misty Step behind the skeleton.
That's a great idea. That's gonna get you right on out of that situation.
That's my bonus extra right there. I'm gonna slice at its bony ankles.
Go ahead and attack away.
With, this? Come on! Oh, come on. Full hit.
Yeah, unfortunately, neither of those are going to.
That is lame. What the hell?
What a good idea that you ended that Misty Step. Started with that Misty Step. Anything else on your turn?
Since he's turned around, would he get a talking opportunity for me if I ran away?
Yeah, he would be able to see you. It's only.
It doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna run because he can't hurt me.
He just can't. He can't really hurt you, so he just hits you, and it doesn't do anything. That's definitely true. As we move to the dragon, the dragon's right up on you's sword, and it's gonna try and get you. As it is going to make a bite attack against you. Oh, yep, you're right. It takes that big amount of damage. It's a 21 to hit. Does that get your sword?
Yep.
A 18, which I think misses.
Miss.
And a 22, which hits. For 14. You take a total of 36 points of piercing and slashing damage. And that's going to be all for the skeletal dragon's turn.
You said 36?
Yeah, and it's going to make that con save against... Yeah, you have to make me 2 concentration checks on that, but it does take the brunt of that necrotic radiant damage. Unfortunately, the Spirit Guardians drop at this point. As the skeletal dragon bears down on you.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. As we move next in initiative to the Sword Coheir, it's your turn. There's a skeletal dragon still right up on your business. What do you want to do?
You know what? Feel a little cruel, so where is it?
Roll damage on that. 18 points of necrotic damage is going to hit. Anything else on your turn? Skeletal dragon is the bones are losing vitality.
I think I will just toss out one more.
Big old healing word.
I'll toss. No, just a regular healing word. I think that was my last level.
On yourself.
I'll just on.
Okay. And that's going to bring us to Othgururt. Othgururt, what would you like to do?
I'd like to initiate the pain train.
Do it up.
It is classic Othgururt angry lizard growling blender time.
Fair
as
enough.
he recklessly swings this great axe again
Charge!
and again.
Roll me 3d2s.
Okay. Sorry. That is...
Okay. In that case, yeah, and now roll me your attack rolls.
Okay.
That's going to be 3 hits. The first one's against Skeleton. Roll damage on that. Skeleton Giant. That's enough to finish off that giant. Your Vorpal Great Axe comes in and crashes through the ribs, shattering it. The giant falls to pieces and collapses to the ground. There's one more giant, and then there's the dragon. What do you want to go after next?
The dragon seems like the biggest threat here.
Fair enough. So the next one is against the dragon. That's going to be 2 more hits against that. Roll damage on the first one. And the second. And as you're kind of whipping through on the kind of the third and final strike that you make this round is the great axe swings. It gets caught on one of the bones and kind of flips over to the side, and you go through, as you described your great axe, it was half mace, half great axe. The part of it that's mace hits it, and you bludgeon through this dragon. And as you do so, it just crushes the bones with the blunt object. And you realize that skeletons have vulnerability to bludgeoning damage. So it's going to take 46 from that last strike. And you do a massive amount of damage to the skeletal dragon. But it's still up, as a lot of the bones on the inside of it are just shattered and turned to dust. And that's going to bring us to the giants, which are going to... The giant that's been fighting you, ChoGal, looks at you, ChoGal, and is like, you know what? Maybe not this guy. And is going to go after you as well, Othgururt, as it's going to run over and pile onto you.
It's too afraid of me.
He cannot hurt you. That's a 22, a 15, and a 16.
The 22 will hit.
For 14, so 7 points of slashing damage. That's all for the giant skeleton's turn. That one's also pretty beat up. We move to the top, Selcress.
All right. So, who is the dragon still looking kind of healthy, or?
The dragon is still looking. Actually, no. The dragon's looking rough too. The dragon's in bad shape.
Which one's looking rougher?
The giant.
Okay. Well,
Selcress is gonna extend a hand out to the dragon and attempt to hold monster it.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh yes.
It's got a plus. You got a +3 to this DC, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's a DC 20. Enjoy.
What's the save?
The wisdom save. No.
The skeletal dragon locks into place. It does not have ancient dragon resistances. Anything else on your turn, Selcress? It's a pretty good turn.
Yeah, Levi's gonna hurl flame at the remaining giant.
All right, do that.
All right.
Yeah. For 17 points of fire. I'm sorry, the 14 actually misses on the giant. But the 15 will hit for 15. The 19 will hit for 15 fire damage. And that's going to bring us to a ChoGal next. What would you like to do, ChoGal?
Cool. So, upon realizing, oh yeah, these are skeletons, they're bad with bludgeon damage, I'm putting away my mythical katana and bringing out my maul. Also, dropping concentration on Shield of Faith because I'm immortal right now. And I'm going to, I think channel Wrathful Smite.
You finishing off the giant or going after the dragon?
Going after the dragon.
Okay. Your attack hits. Roll an attack roll to see if you crit.
Okay.
So an 11 would miss, a 20 would hit.
Cool.
So the 11 hits for 16, the 20 hits for...
instead of Wrathful Smite, Thunderous Smite's probably better.
Okay. It's critical. Roll double smite damage, and also roll me one more 2d6 for...
Okay. So here's another...
2 more d6 for bludgeoning damage.
There's no 10 damage.
Let me know when you're done calculating the damage, because that's a lot of it.
There's the Thunderous Smite for the second time, I guess. And the actual smite damage, which is going to be second level smite on on the one that hit. So that is another 3, and I guess that's doubled as well. Is that correct? Or is that not doubled?
That's doubled as well.
Okay, well, here we go. 68. 31.
I'm sorry, that's not doubled from the vulnerability. That's just doubled from the crit. Is what I meant by that. So, a massive amount of damage. My God. Would you care to describe the killing blow on this dragon?
Sure. Basically, seeing as how the skeleton just got completely bored with me, not being able to actually do anything to me, ChoGal is running over after putting his katana and shield away in one foul swoop. He grabs his maul, his handy maul, the first thing that he got when he came in, and with the might of a mountain, swings for the hills and sends his leg bone into his skull and sends it flying off into the distance like Team Rocket.
The skeletal dragon bone fragments rocket away and into the distance, and those that kind of fall off and away and to the side over the edge just kind of sink into the ground, and some of the bones are just glimmering points of light on the horizon, as the skeletal dragon doesn't even have time to shriek before this incredible combo of paralyzed paladin smite come together in one of the most brutal attacks we've yet seen. That's all for your turn, right?
That is all for my turn.
Okay, good. Sword Coheir, there's one giant skeleton remaining.
I'm just gonna take a swing at it instead of wasting spells.
Yeah, go for it. Oh my god.
That's all you needed, my brother.
Roll damage on that.
I want you to roll max. That's a lot of damage still.
My goodness. All right, you roll up with the square hammer, and with it, your strike kind of comes through and just the force damage just disintegrates the bones to nothing, as the incredibly brutal square hammer just annihilates what's left of this giant skeleton. And as you do so, it just collapses to ground, and the platform kind of falls silent. All that's left before you now, as you have defeated all the skeletons before you, is this kind of the sound of the wind. But Othgururt, at this moment, the battle is still kind of ongoing, and you are still currently in a rage. And out of the center of the plateau, you see rising the form of Marrow once more, who just sinks out of this pillar. And he looks at you, Othgururt, who are currently furious, and just calls out to you, Othgururt, and he just says, "With your weapon, strike me." What do you do, Othgururt?
There is a moment of hesitation, as Othgururt actually has a great deal of respect for Marrow, stands for, and the fact that they have a shared understanding and view of the natural world and the natural resources available in the world. But his blood is boiling, and that's unusual for a cold-blooded creature. And Marrow did ask for combat. So he'll charge forward and attempt a sort of a Z pattern of axe slashes.
A moment of hesitation, but the rage kind of continues forward, and you dash forward, and you swing 3 times. And as you're getting closer to him, with each step, time around you seems to slow down. And as you're kind of running forward, feeling each step and each moment of this one kind of strike, you hear his voice speak to you, heightened by the moment in your mind. And he goes, "Feel. Not just around you." As your senses extended, as you can feel the bones in the platform as you did when you were forging, but within. And for a moment, as you run in on this strike, you can sense Othgururt, for the first time your bones inside of your body, the frame that you, Othgururt, are built upon, the wood that constructs you, and you move with a swiftness that you haven't felt before as you perfectly understand your own anatomy and the way that you strike in this moment. And as you connect, the body of Marrow just kind of disappears and clatters into bones that kind of scatter about the top of the platform, and his voice speaks to you once more. All bones someday return to the earth. Someday I will as well. When that happens, it should be you that answers the call. And with one last word, I hope to see you again, Lord of Bone. He vanishes, and all of you are just standing now on the pillar, seeing Othgururt hits the strike on Marrow, and then he's just kind of standing there, axe extended, and there's quiet on the platform top, and the bone on your armor that's been, as Bartholomew described it, acting up, ceases to do so.
Well, what was all that about anyway?
Yeah, that seemed kind of weird.
Were you chosen by the god or something?
I take a breath and exhale kind of tiredly.
I do not understand the ways of the divine, but yes, I think I have been.
And with that, you have completed this adventure successfully. Your items that you created, the physical items still exist, but as this moment passes, you feel the magic kind of exit them, this divine power that you were granted for a moment, Othgururt, passing as this settles. And you've completed this strange trial that Marrow has set out for you. Each of you gain 2 points of experience for those of you who can do so. And congratulations on your victory in this adventure. Would any of you like to shop?
It's also like, what, 300 Bartholomew bucks?
Yep,
At this,
300 Bartholomew.
cool.
I'd like to shop.
All right, we return to the shop. Eventually return.
You know where to shop.
Bartholomew kind of speaks up to you. I see you're back. My dice are working perfectly again. So whatever you did must have done it. Very good work, all of you. Can I get anything for you?
Oh man, it's time.
Selcress slaps down some Bartholomew bucks.
What can I get for you?
I'm gonna pull from the bag.
Oh my goodness, all right. We can do this. Roll me a D1000. I wish you the absolute utmost of luck.
Alright. Well, that's not great.
well, sometimes you get a time-changing thing, and sometimes you get what you reach into the bag here for, which your hand passes over first, what feels like a pair of slippers, and then just a piece of paper, which you're like, I don't want a piece of paper. But what you grab, it still is a piece of paper. It's actually a more rigid one, a cardboard cone, and you pulled out the party hat. It's a colorful cardboard cone, Bartholomew speaks. You can wear this at parties. And while you're wearing it, you gain a +1 bonus to any party-adjacent activities. You may only gain the benefits, of course, of one hat at a time. But you've gained the party hat. Congratulations on your new hat.
I can wear this during the Carnival of Souls next year.
Yes, you can. Congratulations, friend.
Yeah, that's my birthday, you know?
You could probably use it at the casinos in hell, too. Because isn't it always a party in hell?
It is kind of always a party in hell.
Does anyone else have anything?
I will.
Nah, I'm good.
And here... Oh, wait, you said you did have something?
I might. Let me. I will not, apparently.
Okay. In that case, that's going to do it for us all right now. We'll be back soon with our third and final adventure of the night. See you all soon, everyone.